Howdy folks, it's Adriel, the hunting gear guy. Today I wanted to show you guys this Kriss Vector. Now, a couple things to get out of the way. This is the Canadian version, so it's got this really long barrel on it. It's not actually a suppressor. You can see the barrel's just kind of poking out right there. The other one is that this is a Gen 1, so there's a couple of differences with this one compared to a Gen 2 in terms of the trigger and some of the stock assembly and that kind of thing. But otherwise, it's still very much the Kriss Vector that you love. It's also got a vertical grip that doesn't come from factory, but other than that, we are looking at a Kriss Vector here, so I want to take a closer look at this thing just to check to make sure it's empty. I am checking the chamber, and it's empty there, and the magazine's empty. So our gun's empty. Why don't we take a closer look at this thing? Starting at the rear of the gun here, we've got this adjustable buttstock. This will adjust out, so if you want to, you can adjust it for length of pull. You can also fold this stock. So on the left-hand side, we've got a button there, and that basically allows us to fold it in here. You can see there's this big latch here, and that guy is just being pressed in whenever you press this guy right here. It all just hinges on this push pin here, and it grabs on to the side of the stock right there and just kind of loosely hooks on there to run it a little bit more compact. And when you want to pull it out, you just pull it up a little bit and then out, and it unlocks from the stock there. The safety is ambidextrous, so I'm just using my thumb there, or I could use my index finger if I was right-handed, or I could use my left hand if I was left-handed. I'm going to flip it over here. One thing to note is that it's got a pretty small ejection port here. It's kind of nice. It doesn't allow a lot of stuff into it. On the left-hand side of the gun, you can see that same ambi safety. But then we've got a couple of other things just towards the front here. We've got a magazine release right here. It's kind of small, but I think you can get aftermarket ones for this. We've got our bolt release right here, and we've got our charging handle up here. Now this charging handle is non-reciprocating, which means it doesn't move when you shoot the gun. It only moves when you want to pull it out, so that actually unlatches it. And it also has a kind of a leverage force here to unlock the bolts to push it back. So if you got a stuck case or something like that, this provides a lot of force to move the case that first little bit, and then this will move it for the rest. You can press this button right here. I actually have the bolt locked back, so if I press that button, that's going to throw the bolt forward. And if I want to lock it to the rear, I'm going to need to pull back on the charging handle. This is going to be real hard to do for any of you guys here, but pull that back and then push on the bolt release, and then it'll hold the bolt open. Now, one of the more interesting things on this gun is this big block here, and that's for a reason. The bolt is actually in a kind of in a track, and it goes and then pushes down here. So when you fire this gun, it doesn't torque back and up. It kind of pushes down from the middle, and really in practice what that means is when you shoot it just kind of jiggles a little bit. So it doesn't have that consistent like push back and up rise that you'd find from a lot of other guns that when you're firing them in rapid fire. Instead it just kind of like jiggles around as you're shooting it. So very easy to put a lot of rounds on target with this thing. Now we also have a Picatinny rail on top here. This is metal, whereas a lot of the other outsides here are plastic, and you'll see that very much so when I start taking it apart. They do come with these flip-up sights that you get when you buy one of these things, or you could run a red dot or something like that on here. Now there are a couple of accessory mount points on the sides of the receiver here as well. That are not populated, and this is just that pick rail on the bottom here that I had that vert grip on. I think this feature is one that you might only see in Canada because our barrels have to be a certain length to be non-restricted. What they've chosen to do here is just make it look like a suppressor. This is just a shroud. You can hear how empty that is in there, and it's got the barrel inside it. So this is all barrel here, and the shroud's on here just to look cool. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble this thing for you guys. First thing I'm going to do is pull that bolt forward. This is as hard to charge it as it looks. It's a lot of force. This is not like a light charger by any means. To disassemble, they've all got these push pins in here. They are not captured. You just kind of pull them out like that. And I'll just need to release that. There's my rear stock. Now, this actually, it doesn't look like it, but actually has an upper and a lower. So all I'm going to need to do here, I'm going to push the pins from the other side just so I can see them. You don't really need to see them. You just need to see that I'm pushing them, right? Push that one, and that one. There is one of them. That's just what they look like. They've got like a spring on them. Kind of like what you'd see on a Keltec, but plastic just feels a bit nicer. Let's see here. That one toward the front. And I think, yes, there we go. There's our upper, and here's our lower. I'm just going to put the lower up to the side for now. It's a little bit more in-depth. Now, I want to show you something cool. Up here, whoa, no, there we go. That is our hammer. So that's actually going to fall down and hit the firing pin. So I'm just going to press the trigger here, and you can see that guy going forward. So there's our hammer, and all of our trigger assembly is all in here to get back to that hammer. And that's it cocked again. So if I want to, I can put that back on safe, and now it's not going to activate that hammer. But kind of an interesting idea, right? This is all polymer. This is all plastic, so pretty lightweight. There's a little bit of weight from the metal up here, and I can feel a little bit towards the front there. Just feels like a bit more of a solid chunk up here. And I believe with some of these, you can put like a flashlight or a laser designator or something like that in here. Now coming back to the rear here, you can see that bolt just sitting there, and you can see it's a pretty short little guy, and you can also see the tracks here that it rides against. So I'm going to try to do this. This is really awkward, by the way. I'm going to push on this guy, and can you see that bolt going back and down? It's not really going down just yet. Let me see if I can do it with my left hand. There we go. And it's just starting to go, the tail's starting to go back into the gun here. So that's what's causing that the differential recoil force that these things are famous for, and really what all this extra space is used for. Now you can see this recoil spring along the back here. It's very similar to like a captured spring you'd see on a pistol or something like that, a little bit longer. And to remove that whole assembly, we just push out this pin here. Just pushing it from the other side. Come in. Just gonna jab at it to get it a little bit past that lip. Here we go. There it's out. And now the whole thing will just come out the bottom. So it just kind of rides in a track in there. Come on. And there's our bolt and recoil assembly all kind of in one. So the bolt will just rotate, and then it's off that track. And that's the track. So it's riding in the gun. Sorry. That's the track. It's riding in the gun like that. And if I put the bolt back in there, it's just kind of like riding up here, and that's just how it pushes down, right? So kind of an interesting mechanism, not one you see in a lot of guns. Actually, this is the only one that I'm aware of that has a recoil mitigation scheme that's as extreme as this. Pretty interesting though, right? You'll note that it has a buffer just on the bottom of this thing, because keep in mind this whole thing is going down. It'll hit against the base here, but it's got a pretty beefy recoil spring on here, and this buffer is pretty good as well, so it's not going to really do any damage. Now the bolt itself is a very small little unit. This is for 45 ACP, and it's a very small, lightweight piece. But this thing makes up for it because it's a pretty heavy chunk of steel. Now to reinstall, we're going to pop it back in its track. The bolt, I mean. Pop this guy back in its track, and then slam the whole thing down. And once it's down, we're going to grab one of these push pins here and pop this guy in. Now mating the upper and lower are just as easy. We're just going to put those guys together and it just kind of plops in. Might need to just move this back one a little bit. There it goes. And then our stock. And for this version, I find it's easier just to like put it in there like you're going to engage it, like it's going to be used. And then that pin will already be aligned. So that's pretty much it in terms of putting it back together. Quick function test. Oh man. So the Gen 2s come with a different style trigger. This one uses a 1911 style trigger, which means that it slides. And here, I'm trying to just get you guys a shot here so you can see how it slides there. And the trigger pull is not super fantastic. It's got a bit of a grit to it. I mean, it's not a bullpup, but it's kind of like a bullpup because it's got, like, the trigger's acting back here, but it's actually acting on a hammer that's up here. So there's still a linkage happening between the trigger and the hammer. So although it's not a bullpup, it's actually the reverse. It still has that trigger linkage in here that's gotta work to get to that hammer. Now, in terms of usability, one of the interesting things about this magazine release is pretty small, and you can see it there. If you're holding the gun like this, it is pretty easy to drop, and they do drop free. So not bad. And because, like, I would recommend that you guys get these extended mags here in Canada. We don't have any fun here in Canada, so these are limited to 10, but I would recommend getting the longer ones just because there's more to grab onto, and it's just easier to pop them in than something that would be flush. Now, one thing of note, this is the 45 ACP version, and this uses the Glock 45 ACP mags. So that's nice because there's lots of them. These particular ones are KCI, but you can get genuine Glock mags for this as well, and it makes it so that they're very available. So, cool gun. What can you use them for? Well, here in Canada, this is a plinker. You could shoot PCC competitions with this thing. Like for us here in Canada, our requirements are it has to use a pistol mag because our rifles, magazines made specifically for rifles are limited to 5. Magazines made for pistols are limited to 10. There's a Glock mag. It's made for a Glock, so it can run 10 rounds. And you can run it in a rifle just fine here in Canada. It's a little bit weird, I know, but that fun little bit of trivia means that you can get 10 rounds in the Kriss, whereas something like the Scorpion is limited to 5. So, I mean, that makes this one, a better idea for PCC matches and that kind of thing, right? The other advantages it has are the pretty good ergos. I mean, the ergonomics on it are pretty good. You're kind of forced to hold the gun here or use a vert grip, but if you're going to be running this thing in a match, you really should have that thumb ready for the magazine releases, so keeping it right here is fine. I would personally run a red dot on this thing. I think the safety is all good to go, and although the trigger is a little bit heavy, I think it's good to go as well. I wouldn't really need to do too much to it before it was fine for a match or something like that. Now with the Gen 2s, there are 3 major differences. Here in Canada, we get a cooler, like squared off more shroud rather than a round one. You get a hinged AR style trigger rather than a sliding 1911 style, which is supposed to be better. And then one other thing that you get is they changed the stock connection on these. This one has just a little bit of wobble on here because it's using that one pin there, so a little bit of wobble, whereas the newer one has less wobble. So other than that, the big advantage to the Kriss is the recoil mitigation, where it's dropping that recoil impulse down and into the guts of this guy here. It is really interesting, but it's not really necessary here in Canada because, again, we can only run 10 round mags, so we're not like dumping any full auto bursts or anything like that. We're firing semi-automatic, and we're firing at a range, and it's, we usually need the accuracy anyways. It would be nice if you were shooting from a compromised position, like if you're shooting around a corner or something like that at a match, and you didn't have like a great purchase on your shoulder or something like that. You're kind of shooting at a disadvantage there. At least this isn't going to punch back and hit you in the jaw or something like that. So I guess that's an advantage. But it's not really going to come up a lot in a match. Now, Kriss makes these in 45 and 9mm. 9mm would be the better deal for, again, for matches and that kind of thing. 45 if you like to make big holes in paper and really ring the steel. Or if you just have a whole bunch of, Glocks in 45 UCP, this would be a perfect companion carbine to it, because you'd be able to match a lot of mags, right? For all of you who cringed at my use of the word or pronunciation carbine, that's the way the British and some Canadians pronounce it. So tough. So long story short, that's the Kriss Vector. Thanks for watching.